What's up guys, Joshua here, and my god, I've got a great video for you today. I want to talk about 5 index funds that will make you a millionaire. Now, this isn't some gimmick or scam or like a get rich quick scheme. I know it's kind of coming off that way. I promise you it's not that. What I'll discuss with you today is the easiest, fastest, and safest long-term investing strategy to becoming a millionaire. And the best part about it is that quite literally anybody can do it. So what I'll do is briefly talk about the 5 index funds in this video that I believe can make you a millionaire if you invest in them. And then at the very end of the video, I'll show you how you can use these index funds to actually begin investing toward becoming a millionaire. So I've got my notes right here, I've got my coffee, and as always, oh, that's tasty. Let's get started. Okay, so first up at number 5, we've got VFIX. Now, this is a classic Vanguard index fund that tracks the S&P 500, which is a stock market index that tracks 500 of the largest companies in the US. So this means that when you put your money into this index fund, that you're essentially investing in companies like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, and Tesla. Now, in terms of performance, VFIX has had an average annual return of about 7.75% since its inception. However, the 10-year average is almost double that, with a 14.35% average return. VFIX has an expense ratio of 0.04%, which means that for every $10,000 you invest into this index fund, you'll pay only about $4 per year worth of fees. It's also worth mentioning that this index fund does have a $3,000 minimum investment requirement. That may not be like an absurdly high amount of money, but there are still index funds out there that have a $0 requirement, and so it's worth looking into those ones as well, which we will be doing shortly. Now, you could go with the ETF equivalent of this index fund, which is Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF, and that of course does not have any minimum investment. That would also give your investment a lot more liquidity because ETFs are bought and sold on the stock market exactly like stocks. The ETF version of this index fund does have a slightly lower expense ratio, coming in at 0.03%, which is 0.01% lower than the index fund. That'll save you $1 per year on $10,000 invested. The one downside to investing in the ETF over the index fund is that with the ETF, you cannot automatically invest. You see, with an index fund, you can set it up so that your investments are all automated. You never have to think about buying or selling shares of an ETF. Your money is automatically invested for you, and that's just a really nice luxury. Now, whether or not the automatic investing is worth the extra $1 per year is completely up to you. Some people just prefer having more liquidity with their investment by choosing the ETF over the index fund. Alternatively, you could go with a free service like M1 Finance, set up automatic investing in the app, and have the app buy shares of the ETF for you on a regular schedule. Either way, by regularly investing into this index fund and holding it for years, you're pretty much guaranteed to become a millionaire given enough time. Next up at number 4, we've got VTSAX. This is another classic Vanguard index fund, but unlike the last one we just talked about, this one is designed to give you very broad exposure over the entire stock market instead of just a single index like the S&P 500. By investing in this index fund, you'll be exposed to small, mid, and large cap stocks, plus growth stocks, value stocks, and pretty much everything else. VTSAX currently holds about 3,791 stocks. This of course lends itself to giving you much more broad exposure over the entire stock market, which improves your portfolio's diversification. Now, in terms of performance, when compared to the S&P 500, VTSAX has just barely underperformed over the last 10 years. This is likely due to all the small cap stocks that this index fund holds, which are naturally prone to more volatility because of their small size. Just like with the previous Vanguard index fund, this one also has an expense ratio of 0.04% and a minimum investment deposit of $3,000. All right, coming in hot at number 3, we've got Swipex, also known as the first non-Vanguard index fund on this list, but also known as the Schwab S&P 500 index fund. And yes, as you probably recognize by the name, this index fund does track the performance of the S&P 500, just like number 5 on this list, VFIX. So although the performance of the two index funds are virtually identical, the thing that makes Schwab's fund better is that it has a slightly lower expense ratio, coming in hot at a whopping 0.02% expense ratio, which is only $2 per year on $10,000 invested. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot of money, and that's because it isn't. However, if you have a larger account or plan on having a larger account in the future, let's just say $1 million, then that 0.02% expense ratio is the difference of paying $200 per year versus $400 per year if you were to go with the Vanguard equivalent of this index fund. Now, that $200 difference may not seem like a big deal, especially if you have $1 million in your account. But let's say, for example, you put that $200 that you were saving each year into an S&P 500 index fund. After 20 years, your investment would have grown to over $10,000. And when you put it in that perspective, that 0.02% expense ratio sounds a whole lot better. It's also worth mentioning that this index fund does not have any minimum investment requirements, and so you can start investing with as little as $1. Okay, so we are flying through this list and we're already at number 2, and this is where things start to get super juicy. So number 2 on this list is FSAX. That's probably not how you pronounce it, but this is my video, and so that's how I'm gonna pronounce it. This right here is Fidelity's S&P 500 index fund. However, they can't technically call it that without paying a super hefty licensing fee, and so they just called it the Fidelity 500 index fund. The goal with this index fund is still the exact same: to track the performance of the S&P 500 as closely as possible, which it has done successfully with an average 10-year return of 14.37%, only ever so slightly lower than the S&P 500's 10-year return of 14.38%. So if the performance of this S&P 500 index fund is nearly identical to all the other ones on this list, then why is it sitting at number 2? The main reason is because of the lower expense ratio and minimum deposit. The expense ratio on this index fund comes in at 0.015%, which makes it the cheapest index fund on this list so far. Overall, you can't really go wrong with this investment. It's super solid, plus it's cheaper to own, and every penny saved is a penny invested. And this actually brings us to the very last index fund on this list, the index fund king, and Fidelity's answer to getting millennials to invest with them instead of Vanguard, the great, the mighty
ROTH.
Unlike most index funds on this list, and just really in general, this index fund right here has an expense ratio of a whopping 0%. That's right, it costs nothing to own this index fund. This means that you can put all your money into this index fund, just sweep your few $1,000,000 into this index fund, and it won't cost you a single penny. Now, I know what you might be thinking: Joshua, nothing in life comes for free. There's a catch. And yes, you're correct. There actually is a catch. The catch is that there is no catch, because this actually is a completely free index fund. And to make matters even better, it also has a $0 minimum investment. Fidelity's strategy here is likely to try and get as many millennials through their doors as possible. By doing this, they have more opportunities down the road to sell them other types of funds or financial products. Now, FC Rocks is a total stock market index fund, which means that by investing in this index fund, you'll give your portfolio exposure to the entire US stock market, which of course is really good for that good old diversification. Now, given that this index fund is just a few years old, it's going to be really difficult to calculate the long-term potential of it. You see, right now, its lifetime average is sitting at a beautiful 17.29%. However, it's only been around since 2018, and the stock market has experienced amazing growth since then. We can safely assume that the lifetime average return of this index fund is going to kind of match other index funds out there that hold similar stocks. But with a 0% expense ratio, this index fund can't not be ranked at number 1. Okay, so now I want to talk to you guys about how you can actually begin using these index funds to become a millionaire, because I know that ultimately that's the reason why you clicked into this video in the first place, and so let me give you the answer right now. Okay, so the first step is actually going to be to head over to some type of investing calculator. Now, I like the one here on investor.gov. It's very simple, it's straight to the point. I don't have to think about anything, and so that's the one that I'm using. So the first thing that you'll actually want to do is enter your initial investment amount. Now, this could be anything. This could be money that you already have, perhaps like in a Roth IRA or 401k, or just your individual investment account, or it's money that you have in your savings account but you want to start investing. Whatever you want to put there as your initial investment, just put there. I'll just say $10,000 just to keep things simple. Then in the monthly contribution field, I want you to enter in the amount of money that you think you can invest each month, because remember, you can't just invest a few $1,000s into an index fund and then wait 20 years and expect to have $1 million. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen that way. You have to continuously be investing, and the more money you invest, the better. Next, I want you to hop down to the field that says length of time in years. This essentially means how long you have until retirement. So if you're 30 right now and you plan on retiring at 65, that means you have 35 years left to start investing. And so for that field, you would enter 35. Okay, so next up, the estimated interest rate. So for this field, all you have to do is just find the average annual return of the index fund that you're investing in. So for this example, I'm just using VT-SAX. I know that that has an average annual return of about 8.27%, and so that's what I'll put here. And then finally, the compound frequency. Technically speaking, stocks do not have compounding interest. Instead, stocks pay dividends, and then those dividends are reinvested back into the index fund, which then creates that compounding effect. So anyways, once that's all done, just hit calculate, and then it'll give you how much you'll earn by the time that you retire with the numbers that you put in. So the results are in 35 years, you will have $636,000. So obviously, if I was trying to become a millionaire, then that wouldn't fit, because that's not $1 million. And so what I have to do is just go back up right here and figure out how much money I need to contribute monthly to reach that $1 million mark by the time I retire. So maybe let's just bump it up a little bit to $350. Okay, so we are almost there. So that's $985,000, which means I would really only have to invest like another $10 per month, and that's probably gonna get me past that $1 million mark. See, there you go. So if I started off with an initial investment of $10,000 and then invested $360 every single month for the next 35 years, I would retire a millionaire. You just have to play around with this calculator a little bit to figure out what numbers are gonna work for you so that you can meet your investing goals to become a millionaire. And of course, I'll put a link to this calculator right here in the description below. Hey, do me a really quick favor, drop a like on the video below if you found some value. Also, if you have not already subscribed to this channel, please do so. I would love to have you back on these videos. As always, I will see you again very soon. Take care.